It's interesting to watch this over multiple generations. So, this wasn't a video I was intending to make today when I got up. I woke up today thinking, well, what am I going to talk about today? And I'm scrolling through various articles on the NHL. And it's interesting when you get into the comment section. I did a video a couple years back, just as a joke, on how everything's Gary Bettman's fault. And I'll even, at the end of this video, I'll link to it. It'll be on the screen down in this corner down here. Because, it's insane to me. It's been insane to me for years how everything gets blamed on Bettman. So right now, if you're a season ticket holder, you may or may not have had a refund on games you know you're not going to be able to attend. And you may or may not be a season ticket holder for a team that's saying, yep, so deposits are due pretty soon here for next season. And you may get mad at Gary Bettman for that, even though Bettman doesn't have any direct control over that at all. So again, I've got no refunds at the top of the list here because he doesn't have any say in that. There are teams that are offering refunds. There are teams that are not. And, it's going to depend on the team. For instance, I had tickets to go to the States and fly in March, and I got a credit. I didn't get a refund, I got a credit. Meanwhile, the hotel I was going to stay at gave me a refund. So, again, it depends on who you're going through. But with the NHL, they're all different companies, basically. It's the best way for me to put it. And there's no way you're not going to get your money back on tickets for this year and next year. I think it's optimistic to think there'll be fans in attendance at all next year. And it may extend into the season beyond that. So the new reality in sports, I believe, is going to be no fans in attendance for, I'm going to go ahead and say, for years. I'm going on that assumption that I'm not going to see a game live in person for years. That game I saw between the Canucks and the Islanders, that's it. And I don't blame that on Bettman either. But lockouts obviously get thrown at Bettman too. It's all on Bettman. So Bettman's the commissioner. He works essentially for the owners. Now, if the owners didn't agree with the lockout in 2004, 2005, if the owners hadn't walked away with the deal they really, really liked, Bettman would have been gone. He would have been gone within a year. The reality is, coming out of that lockout, wiped out season of 04-05 that everybody blames Bettman for, fans showed up in droves. Ticket prices went up and people still bought them. And the game got bigger. And that's the real impact in Bettman's era. Now, you could make the argument of, well, Bettman had nothing to do with things getting better for the NHL. But then you're kind of giving him all the blame for everything that goes wrong, and you're not willing to give him any credit for things that go right. For instance, Canada loses the Jets and the Nordiques, and everybody's been mad at him ever since. But then they got the Jets back in Winnipeg. But I still hear people saying, well, under his watch, we lost the Jets and the Nordiques. And I keep having to correct people and say, no, we've lost the Nordiques. We got the Jets back. And then it's, well, yeah, but we still lost them for 15 years. Right, but they came back. So it wasn't Bettman taking teams out of Winnipeg and Quebec. It was owners taking teams out of Winnipeg and Quebec. For instance, I keep seeing people say, well, Arizona and Florida, right? So let's say I've got, a few $1 billion I don't care about. I'm going to throw money at Arizona. And I say, all right, I'm going to move this team from Arizona. I'm going to move it to Hamilton. I'm going to move it to Quebec. I'm going to move it to Saskatoon. Right? It's my team. I can do what I want with it. No. Now, Bettman himself can't stand up there and go, I've decided that this team's not being moved. I've decided that we're staying in Arizona. I've decided we're staying in Florida. While 31, or now going to be 32 other owners, well, no, it'll be 31 other owners, are saying, oh, you can't do that. Oh, what is he doing? No, he works for the owners. There isn't any appetite with ownership to change things with Florida and Arizona. They don't have any desire to leave those markets because I think they realize if they give up those markets, they're not going to get back. And while they gave up on Atlanta twice, there were varying circumstances. The first time Atlanta leaves to go to Calgary, you have a completely different mindset. You have completely different owners for the most part, and it's a whole different scenario. When the Thrashers left, it was an issue with the building and bad ownership. It wasn't really Atlanta doesn't support the team. It was bad ownership and some bad decisions along the way. Bettman had absolutely nothing to do with it. But when the team needed a building and they needed a city to play in, and the team goes back to Winnipeg, why not give them a little bit of the credit for that? But no, we have to just, the hate's there. Every time he goes on the ice, he gets booed. Now, the War of 1812, I'll admit, is mine. And again, I'll link to the video I did on that, which, of course, would make him over 200 years old. But why not? Because people take it to ridiculous lengths. So I thought, yeah, I'll take it to ridiculous lengths, too. We'll see how that goes. And people got a kick out of it when I did it. High ticket prices get blamed on Gary Bettman. My tickets for Canucks game cost me over $100. Damn it, Bettman. I can't afford to pay over $100 a ticket. Now, really what it is it's owners charging what they know people will pay. So tickets might be a lot cheaper in Florida or Arizona because the owner knows he's not going to be able to sell them at the higher price. And teams are getting more creative. Carolina, when Tom Dundon took over, they got more creative when it came to the ticket pricing and to trying to bring people into the building. And there's definitely something to be said for good ownership making up for lukewarm markets. And that's definitely something the NHL struggled with. When you look at Arizona's seemingly endless list of follies when it comes to the ownership picture, at least with Mariuelo now in charge, it seems like that should be stable. That part should be okay. They're going to spend the money to put a team on the ice, and now we'll see whether or not Arizona would support a winner. That's the idea behind it. And high ticket prices, really, Bettman has nothing to do with. But again, and it's related to the whole no refunds thing. Oh, Bettman. He doesn't have time for that. He has enough headaches. He doesn't have time for, hey, Gary, can you figure out the ticket pricing in Toronto? I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? Playing during pandemic, not playing during pandemic. So whether it's the shutdown where people are like, oh, this is an overreaction, this is crazy, or now that the NHL is trying to figure out some way to safely come back and play some hockey games because we could be in this for years. No matter what they do or don't do, it's Bettman's fault. How dare Bettman shut things down? How dare Bettman look at reopening things? It's got to be really frustrating for him. That it's like you have two options, and no matter which option he holds up, people boo him. I'm thinking we should shut down until things are better. Boo! I'm thinking we should open. Boo! You're a moron. What do you know? Doesn't matter. I'm thinking everybody should get $1 million and free ice cream. Boo! Get off this. Wait, what was that last one? Damn it, we're so conditioned. He left, didn't he? Damn it. And that's kind of where we are. Like, everything is his fault, whether it happens or it doesn't happen. Your team wins the Stanley Cup? Well, it was rigged by Bettman. Your team loses in the playoffs? Rigged by Bettman. That's pretty awesome. And, of course, the funny thing was, remember in the 2018 playoffs, people talk about, everything being rigged for Bettman. And I said, look, nothing's rigged for Bettman when it comes to the playoffs because he's always been a frequent attendee of Washington Capitals games, and they've never won squat. And I guess Bettman watched that video where I said that because then they won the Stanley Cup that year. So I guess he was just building dramatic tension by not rigging it in their favor until 2018. Where the rigging talk drives me nuts is it completely belittles every amount of effort that every player has given on the winning team. It takes all the blood, sweat, and tears that players have put into winning a Stanley Cup, and it kind of wrecks it. And it makes it so that it sounds like it doesn't matter what any of them did, which is just, I don't like it. Draft lottery results are completely in his purview, and he's completely in charge of it. I think the height of the draft lottery being rigged talk was when Sidney Crosby went to Pittsburgh. Although when Austin Matthews was the number one pick and went to Toronto, that was certainly out there too. And I mean, it would be easy to blame him for a lot of these things if he had any control over it, if he had any actual control over the lottery. Like we've talked about having greater visibility of what goes on at the lottery. Yeah, but there's owners and managers that know exactly what goes on in that room. And apparently it's as interesting as watching paint dry. So that's why they don't televise it. Penalties, that's his fault. Non-penalties are also his fault. Last year in the playoffs, we saw that with the Vegas San Jose debacle, right? So the whole Cody Eakin thing, which we can still debate, we're not going to get into, but because of the way the rule was, well, clearly Bettman wanted San Jose in the next round. But then the rules got changed, and I heard people saying, well, Bettman's baby is Vegas, so he's trying to coddle them. So it was both sides. It was still Bettman's fault. It was Bettman's fault the penalty was called, and then it was Bettman's fault And his favoritism that caused the rules to get changed this year, where all major penalties are reviewed, which I like. I really like that rule. I think it's fantastic. The game has gotten faster under Bettman's watch. Scoring has gone back up under Bettman's watch. It was Bettman's fault the scoring dropped and the trap took over, and then it was Bettman's fault that we lost the season. And now that scoring's back up and the game's more entertaining, that has nothing to do with Bettman, and it has everything to do with the athletes on the ice. Everything to do with the coaches. You'll give the credit goes to everybody else. The blame will go to him. So fighting's decline is blamed on Bettman, not on whether or not the game has changed. So you can't afford to have a guy in your fourth line that's not useful in some manner. If you have a fourth liner that's not really a useful fourth liner in some manner and can play minutes, then he's not going to be in the lineup. And a lot of the old-fashioned enforcers, which people have a tremendous amount of affection for, and tremendous feelings for as players, and great guys, they couldn't take a regular shift. They couldn't play penalty kill. They couldn't play a power play. And 5-on-5, they had some issues with whether it was skating or whatever it was. There was an issue that kept them from being top-level athletes that could skate a regular shift. So the game has changed and taken some of the fighting out because your pure enforcers are gone now. And with the excess speed in the game, with the fact that the game's now a young man's game where players are usually 26 years of age or younger, fighting's declined. And yet, what do I hear? Bettman wants to take fighting out of hockey. Even though every time he's been asked about it, he said, we're not going to take fighting out of hockey. When he's been asked about checks to the head, his answer's been, well, you can't get rid of all checks to the head. And yet, when we see a penalty called for a headhunt, that's Bettman's fault. That Bettman's changed the game. So even the George Peros argument, George Peros gets a lot of blame for every single suspension or non-suspension. People will still turn back and go, yeah, but that's Bettman's guy. Bettman wanted him in there, so that's why we have the game that we do. It's just weird to me how everything is always his fault. Everything. And no matter what the topic is in the hockey world, somehow he will get shoehorned in there. People are like, I hate Bettman. And every time you say that, there's an owner somewhere that smiles and says, man, I'm so glad he takes all the heat off of us. During this shutdown, when the Boston Bruins were the one team that said, yeah, well, we're not going to pay people, that became really, really amplified because suddenly people could look at Jeremy Jacobs and go, wow, this guy's kind of a jerk. Something that Boston fans we've known for a long time, not necessarily to that extent, and something that gets hidden with Bettman. Bettman is the voice for the other owners so that they don't have to worry about battling in public relations. When you look at lockouts, and during lockouts, the hate goes towards the players. There's really kind of a simple reason for this. Bettman. So Gary Bettman goes out there and he is the one voice. You might hear from owners along the way, but Bettman really is that unifying voice, and the owners all kind of rally behind whatever they've collectively decided Bettman needs to say. And then on the players' side, you're going to have players saying, well, we're not playing until we get this. And other players going, I'm willing to play right now. I'll sign it. And then you've got guys that are going, I don't know. I go back and forth day by day. So as fans, we'll look at that and go, well, the owners have a unified message here. The players are all over the map. The players just kind of sound greedy. They don't know what they want. Why aren't they just out on the ice? I would play for free. So during lockouts and during shutdowns, we all turn on the players. It happens every time. And we favor the billionaire owners who all employ Bettman. Bettman works for them. And they don't work for him. Yes, Bettman's influence over the game is there. And there are times where, for instance, with trying to expand the playoffs, where Bettman's gone, no, we're not expanding the playoffs. And he hasn't really listened to arguments on it. But if 16 owners collectively put together a proposal for him, and they send it to his desk, he'd have to look at it. But it's not usually owners that are proposing that kind of thing. It'll be general managers or players or agents or coaches. And he's like, yeah, we're not going to look at that. But if a majority of the owners said, you know what, we need to expand playoffs, we need to do this, then he'll look at it. And so if we see the playoffs expand next year, people are going to get mad. And people are going to blame Bettman. The reality is it's going to be a decision made by the owners behind him. Because he can't work all on his own. Or else that's when you'll see him get fired. So anytime I see people saying, I really wish they'd fire Bettman, I really wish he'd go, he's not going anywhere. Because as long as you're mad at him and you're not mad at his actual employers, he's doing his job. And that's the real key there. That's why I wouldn't want that job at all. No, and no. That's a job that, no. I know how much he gets paid. I know he's paid really, really well. Even now, he's getting paid really, really well. Millions and millions of dollars. There's a reason he gets paid all that money. It's hazard pay because he's reviled by the hockey world in general when it comes to players and fans. Some players, not all players. But there are some players who definitely don't like him. But again, he's the face of the owners. All right, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And here's a question I have for you fine people. The weirdest thing you've seen Bettman blamed for. Legit. I don't want to see something like I slipped in the shower and it was Bettman's fault. I don't want to see that. I want to see, like, legit, the weirdest thing you've seen somebody blame Bettman for in his time as commissioner. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.